Welcome to the panel called Self-Determination and Service Providers Advocating Through Life's Journeys. Our speakers today are self-advocates, and we also have a waiver support coordinator, CDC Plus consultant with us. The self-advocates are Sarah Canali, Rebecca Crosby, Robin Stosky, and then Brandy Golson is our waiver support coordinator, CDC Plus consultant. And my name is Natalie Jean, and I am the Ombudsman for the Agency for Persons with Disabilities, and I have the wonderful privilege of being the moderator of this panel. The self-advocates speaking today, so Sarah, Rebecca, and Robin, they receive services from the Medicaid waiver through the Agency for Persons with Disabilities. Rebecca, Robin are on the iBudget waiver. Sarah is on the alternative program called Consumer Directed Care Plus, and she will, when she speaks, she's going to explain a little bit about why she chose to switch to CDC Plus. So today we are going to talk about self-determination and self-advocacy. That's the focus of this presentation, and this presentation also highlights the importance of speaking up for yourself and working in partnership with your service providers. The self-advocates speaking today utilize the supports provided through the waiver to help them live the life that they want as independently as possible. Self-determination and self-advocacy is about taking control of your life, making your own choices about how you want to live your life. Brandy will be speaking a little bit about the service support coordination because we want to make sure everyone listening in understands what the service waiver support coordination is. And then our self-advocates will be sharing insights and experiences related to their journeys. So each one of them will be sharing some insights and experiences, and you'll hear some experiences from this past year. So this presentation is not going to be an instructional session on the iBudget waiver and CDC Plus, but we did want to emphasize the flexibility that's available. And I wanted to, before each person speaks, each self-advocate speaks, I wanted to just bring out some pointers that the self-advocates felt was important that everybody needs to remember. And that is that services can change and evolve over time. Life happens, there are life changes. So what you yesterday may not be what you need today. What you need a month from now or a year from now may differ from what you need today. It's a dynamic process. You must advocate for the services and supports that you need. And something that is going to help you do that is knowing the rules and the flexibility that's available in the program. Ask questions and be persistent. And if you didn't understand what the waiver support coordinator said, they probably didn't explain it very well. So keep asking until you understand. You know, both the Medicaid waiver, both the iBudget and the CDC Plus, they foster the principles of self-determination as a foundation for the services and supports. So the flexibilities in the programs help with this, but for this to be a reality, you need to understand the rules of the program and the flexibilities that is there. A few other things that the self-advocates on this panel wanted to bring out is that it's important that your service providers, that they know about you. And part of advocating for yourself is educating your providers. You are the best person to explain or describe your needs and preferences. So you would need to explain what you need and how you need it done. you're the one living it, and you're the one that truly understands what you need. What might seem like common sense to you may not be common sense to the provider. You may need to explain to them what's going on inside your body to help them understand why something is important. Educate them the best way that you can. And if you can't explain it verbally, then maybe you can write it out or show them. Self-advocates look for information in lots of places. And sometimes you need to be creative in meeting your goals, and your waiver support coordinator can help you with that. Another pointer that the self-advocates wanted to bring out is that it's important for you to know who to contact in your regional office. If you need assistance, your waiver support coordinator or your CDC Plus consultant, they are your primary point of contact. But after that, if you still have questions or issues or concerns, you can reach out to your regional office. And if your issue is about the waiver, maybe you want to ask for the waiver workstream lead. Know who you need to talk to at the regional office. If you're not sure who you need to talk to, you can call and ask. On the APD website, in the locations tab, there is contact information for each local APD office.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brandy Golson. I'm a waiver support coordinator with J&K Haven of Support. I just wanted to give a brief overview of waiver support coordination and basically what it entails and how your waiver support coordinator is selected. Now, not only do we assist with coordinating specific services in and out of the community, we also assist the individual along with his or her circle of supports to develop a person-centered support plan that contains specific detailed information regarding his or her goals that they basically want to achieve throughout their future, and not only that, throughout the fiscal year, which is from July 1st to June 30th of the following year. We ensure health and safety needs are met by certain required monthly contacts, depending on your living setting. And we also educate the individual about advocating for themselves and gaining knowledge on different forms of abuse, neglect, and exploitation. Now, as a reminder, we have to remember that the waiver is the payer of last resort. So while we do want to see all of our individuals reach their highest potential by working within their allotted budget, we also have to continue to locate suitable natural resources in and out of the community to make sure they're working to assist those goals as well. I know throughout the individual having a waiver support coordinator, there may be times where you just don't mesh well together, or things may happen and you want to change to have a new waiver support coordinator. So my recommendation to you is to first sit down and have a meeting with the support coordinator to see if there's anything that you can kind of hash out. If the issue continues to arise, the next option is to contact your local APD district office to request a selection package to interview with the new WSC. Because we have to remember, this is a choice-based program, and that every individual does have the option to change their WSC and their WSC agency at any time. As far as the service providers with the individual, we actually have a listing on the APD website that we usually go through, or we'll receive an email for the provider asking for services. So what we usually do is send maybe like 5 to 6 providers to the individual. We kind of work through those. They do their interviews, either telephone or face-to-face, to see which provider best fits their needs. In addition to having the support plan as well, because remember, we have to make sure that everything in regards to the services being provided has to do with the goals that are on the support plan, which was completed by the individual and all of their circle of supports as well. Once the interview is completed and the provider is selected, then again, those services are provided according to what the goals are on the support plan, and then whatever the allotted hours are within the budget. Again, the individual does have the option, if they, start the services and they see that the provider isn't a good fit or they're not meeting the needs, or even if the waiver support coordinator, depending on when they have their actual visit, see that it's not working out to the benefit of the individual, they do have the option to change.
And what advice do you have for APD clients if they are if they're having an issue with a provider or they're not comfortable with a provider?
I would let the individual know to talk to your waiver support coordinator, because that's what we're here for. And if you want to keep it as far as confidential, that's perfectly fine. But we have to know in advance as to what's going on. I would say don't wait until it's, out of control at that point. Let's hit it on the head as soon as it starts so that we can nip it in the bud. And it may be that you do need to change your service provider. If they're not comfortable enough with doing that, or if we've done that and it still doesn't, after we've had a meeting and the service provider still isn't, working as to where the individual sees that the need is not being met, they do have the option to request a service provider or even file a grievance. They have an option to do that as well. And the waiver support coordinator is supposed to actually give the individual that information to have that grievance filed also.
And one last question I think would be helpful. What are some of the things that you look for when you're trying to determine if this is a good provider or that the provider is doing what they're supposed to do?
I like to talk to the individual separately to see how they're doing with the provider, to making sure their needs are met. I also talk to the provider to make sure that they're hitting those specific goals that are on the support plan, and then reviewing the documentation, because just because they're telling you that they are doing it at the visit, the documentation should actually match what they're saying and what's on the support plan. And if it's not, I don't have an issue with contacting the provider to let them know, hey, you're not working on the goals that's on the support plan, or you're sending me documentation with 3 lines, but then they have 8 hours of personal support services. That doesn't equate to sufficient services to me.
Well, thank you. I think all that information will be helpful. It seems to go well with the information that you provided about waiver support coordination and CDC Plus consultant.
Hello, everyone. I'm from Harris County, which is central part of Florida. I graduated from South Florida State College and going for graphic design. I'm also independent contractor of Carpenters, Florida. I have cerebral palsy and the processing disorder. The challenge I have is when people talk too fast, it's hard to follow what they're saying, especially now with COVID, when people wear masks. All my life, it's been a challenge to sharpen my abilities. People would misjudge my disability and not see the whole picture. Then I have to educate others how to focus abilities, not the disabilities. Then a good question. My life celebrations and challenges I have this year. I graduated with AA degree after 10 years. Anyway, I've been an art club, a marketing officer in art club since 2017. I joined PTK last fall. I received all Florida academic awards. My dream college was always Belmont University, which was why I stayed determined from special diploma GED and now graduated with AA degree. So I didn't think it was possible to recently, after talking with someone who's had a CDC plus Medicaid waiver, that was possible that I can have personal care assistant while going to college out of state and still have my residency in Florida at the same time. A comprehensive physician program ceiling would set me because I need personal care assistant While I'm still working on the accuracy of my weights on the bright side, I found a website called Pathfinder Tennessee with all supports in each category for individual disabilities, which all states did that. Because of Pathfinder, I was able to find tutoring services. However, with COVID, need resolve health issues while we compare playing education, going to school on campus. Meantime, I will be taking classes online for now and be transient student on colleges in Florida to earn credits for Belmont and at the same time working towards graphic design certificate program. One step at a time as I climb up the ladder of my dreams. The challenge I had, I could go to Lakeland Regional for outpatient physical therapy because I'm a high risk of COVID and they closed down for a while. However, it was still risky for me to go. The good news to work with physical therapists that had over 10 years doing home health who knows my needs really well. She was able, which makes it easier to teach my caregivers home health, home therapy programs. And the challenge for getting caregivers to stay understand why therapy is support without quitting, especially with attending special stars in Major League Baseball during COVID. If, even after my grandma's bypass, it was a challenge. The physician that caregivers do personal care, and it was critical they do it on daily basis. It is still eye-opening how much work is being done transition into supported living and how many hours I really need in order to be on my own someday. Another challenge, I developed a cough a year ago besides having asthma. As now, doctors assume it's acid reflux going into my lungs. Cough can be embarrassing during COVID as people are more self-conscious about it. What COVID has taught me and what opportunities did present to me. I can do things and enjoy that I didn't get to do since I had a busy schedule going on. I enjoy writing my songs and guitar and do. I learned we all do something. We all be doing things we enjoy the life because life is short and we should cherish life. With COVID, you don't know who's going to die next, and many families have lost loved ones. It also taught me to be my own representative and choose what services is best for me for CTC Plus. What opportunities it brought me, I got to do partners policy making on Zoom. Via Zoom. This gave me access and not worrying personal care visit each month. Each month. I was able to participate in for 6 months. I invited legislators to mock testimony and won Alan C. Wells Award at the graduation of Partners Policy Marketing on Zoom. I was able to attend virtual college fairs and had Zoom party that brought opportunity to see friends near and far and we all know each other. How do I explain what I need?
Right there.
No, this is how difficult. How do I explain what we need? For family members, I have to stop to explain and educate my disability. For friends, we learn from each other. Some of my friends are not disabled, so it's good for them to ask me questions so they can learn about. Sometimes I have to educate my disability. It's good for them to ask questions so they can learn about my disability. For providers, I verbally give them instructions how to handle my care and medical equipment. What
Quality.
quality I look in a providers can sit honest, help me make my own decisions, not always on their phones while they're working with me, and they must be on time as well. The next question, how do I speak up and what creative ways I found success? Being self-advocate is important to be able to speak up for what you need, not only for waiver services, but for school and the community as well. Self-advocate helps other people with disabilities. Provide knowledge, sharing resources, learn on social media. Having friends makes us feel not alone. We all go through similar disabilities or experiences. Some individuals with disabilities may not know something things exist or where they get help. It's up to us as self-advocate to educate them resources that are available. The creative ways I've learned is to ask my friends who have similar experiences with disabilities and what they went through for advice. Once I found their advice and still having trouble with agencies and services, I contact Mindy Whitehead, who's the program administrator for CDC, or I can contact my new consultant. my I moved to my CDC Plus because it's more flexible more choices to hire people for my services. After becoming my own representative and finding that it's possible to go college out of state, someday realized DC Plus is more flexible than I thought it was. My advice to you is having good support team, be persistent leads to a good game plan. Having support advocate alongside of you while being self-advocate helps also. Being persistent, being consistent, determined, not giving up will keep you in the game to overcome challenges. Get involved with organizations and getting to know each other will help us understand and to become better advocates. I will empower other people with disabilities to do the same. We all have something to we need to stay visible and know so the community will understand us. We all have something to contribute to our society, even if it takes us longer to reach our goals.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's so sweet.
All right, so hello everyone. My name is Rebecca Crosby, and I am a self advocate, a social worker, and a health coach in that order here in Tampa. And so, you all, I guess, are wanting to know what are my new life celebrations and challenges that I've had this year. And so I think that I've survived this year, as we all have. My family members and I have had more physical and emotional changes in perspective this year, and that's made me reevaluate what's important to me in a personal care assistant, as well as in a provider agency and in a waiver support coordinator. It's made it harder to keep the providers that we have that do good work because, in all honesty, um, continual change that's been problematic is that the providers that do the best work often don't want to stay because the pay for what they do is so low, unfortunately. So they often, for the good work they do, move on to other jobs that pay better and provide benefits because as meaningful and as important as this work is, they don't get the dignity and the pay that they deserve for doing it, which is highly, highly unfortunate. And I am constantly advocating for that to change and for them to have the livable wage that they deserve because it would make it so much easier for good workers and good providers to stay around and for me to get the care that I need and for other people with disabilities to get the care that they need. So that is my challenge this year, as I'm sure it is for many other people in time, especially in this time of COVID. And so, with that being said, how I handle the problems that arise is I've learned that no is an option. In addition to the ones that I usually utilize, I've changed personal care agencies as well as support coordinators, not because I didn't appreciate the job that they were doing or because I didn't like them personally, but just because I had to realize that the things that were occurring and the services that they were able to provide just weren't aligning with what I needed in this moment. It had nothing to do with them as people. I just had to realize that this is what I need right now, and these companies and these people aren't able to provide what I need right now. So I need to step up and be able to say no so that I can get what I need. And if at some point in the future somebody is able to provide what I need, then I can go back and reevaluate. But no is okay on either side. If my schedule or my living situation doesn't work out for a provider, they're more than welcome to say no to working with me, which they've done on multiple occasions as well. So, and that has to be okay. And so, how do I speak up? And in what creative ways have I found success? So, this is just a short one for me. I just make connections in any ways that I can find. And that means never throwing away a phone number and never being afraid to ask a question. You never know who's willing to help and who may be helped by helping you. So, I have people on my Facebook page that used to be providers for me 20 years ago. That if I have a provider that doesn't show up now, I can go on my Facebook page and say, hey, I had a provider that called out last minute. Does anybody know somebody? Um, and sometimes I have a provider that might have been a provider, you know, 3 or 4 years ago that maybe they're not willing to come back and work for me full time, but maybe they're willing to come in and help me out just for a day. So I never burn any bridges. For me, what are the keys to having a good waiver support coordinator? A good waiver support coordinator understands how your past experiences have affected you, can pick up where you are now, and knows how to help you plan for your future goals. Having a knowledge of the resources available and how to use them, and listening and being responsive to a client is also important. So in other words, if you have somebody that doesn't understand where you've been and how those past things might inform what you want to do, or why certain things might negatively be affecting you, or even why you might have certain preferences or things that you do or don't like, that's going to be something important that you need to let them know. If you have a certain goal that you're planning for, that's also something that they need to be aware of. And if you have someone that is not listening to you and um, doesn't know what you want and what you're planning for, and what the resources are that you need to help get you there, then that is something that you need to reevaluate in the team that you have working, not for you, but with you. With that in mind, the qualities that I look for in a provider, as Sarah said, someone who is engaged in my day. In other words, not always on their phone, but also while they're engaged and asking me what I need and being able to anticipate what my needs are. Someone who is also able to give me space when I need it as well. Because while I live independently, I do have a family and I do have a job and my own things going on. And so I need to be able to say, this is my plan for the day and this is what I'm doing. These are the things that I need help with. So I need you to be involved, but I also need to have my space to be an independent individual as well. And believe it or not, when all else fails, you have your moments, you pout, you cry, and you keep it moving. And that's as simple as honest as I can get with it. Just to be real about it. I'm 40 plus years old. I'm not gonna say exactly how much. No, I'm just kidding. I'll be 42 in July. But I still have my moments when I get down on myself, and I still have my moments when I get frustrated. So, like I said, I pout, I cry, but then you have to dust yourself off and say, today is another day, and life has to go on. So you just keep it moving, and that's all I can say about it.
I think you made some very good points there, Becky, that even when times get tough, we just got to pick ourselves up and just kind of do a point of, you know, self-reflection and reevaluation of just maybe there's more than one avenue to reach the same goal, and that we everybody not may not get from A to Z the same way, but we're all going to get there in some manner, in some way, to accomplish what we need to. And despite the challenges we may face along the way, they're not only going to be turned into be valuable lessons, but the connections and the things that we learned and the knowledge that we obtained through them make us a stronger person. And even though when times get rough and we do have those moments of the, taking a break and just some frustration, or just asking, like, when is this going to end, or when is this going to pull through, and or even personally, like, when am I ever going to get out of this waiting room, and things going to my name going to be called, and we're going to start finding solutions to the problem, that there is going to be an end in sight, and that we're all a valuable network for one another.
And oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to add in my COVID question. Did you want me to go ahead and do that now?
Yeah, go ahead. That's fine.
And so, in terms of COVID, the positive side of what that presented to me this year was I learned what it is to be a caregiver this year, by people in my life that were affected by COVID. Maybe not, well, in some ways directly, because I did have family members and friends that were directly impacted by COVID, and in other ways, indirectly affected by COVID. I had to help care for their mental health, and to do what I could physically as well, even if it wasn't providing direct care, to do what I could to provide care, um, in a secondhand way, um, to make sure that even if I wasn't the one providing the care, that I was making sure that care was provided to them. So I learned what it was like to, um, not be the one being for a change, which, um, what provided a new perspective for not only me but my family members as well. We learned a lot about one another, in the last year. So as challenging as that was, and as tested as we were, it was a good challenge in a lot of ways.
Awesome. So, Robin, did you want to go next?
One of my life celebrations this year is after the pandemic, well, during the pandemic when it started, the Y was shut down, as most gyms were across the United States. But the Y stayed open with a purpose, and that was to offer relief care to families of essential workers, children. And what that involved was, we provided care for them, daycare, while they were working in the front lines of in the hospitals with COVID patients. During my first day of relief care, I looked at my boss and I said, camp counselor, I am not. Cafeteria worker, I am not. And after a while into the pandemic, I got assigned to calling our seniors and checking up on them, and making phone calls to make sure that they were okay. So I ended up talking a lot of our senior members through how to order groceries using a smartphone, and ordering Uber Eats, Instacart, some of them how to connect to Facebook to speak with family and to use Zoom. So it turned into a very interesting situation for myself. But after the pandemic, after we reopened during the pandemic, there are two membership experience advisors at the Y where I work. And as of yesterday, I celebrated being with the YMCA Tampa Association for 14 years and 9 months now. So it's been a long time. And one of the things that they challenged me with during the pandemic was to reevaluate my situation of what my job was going to be after the pandemic, because we had a large population of kids doing online schooling. We had a large population of kids going back to brick and mortar, and they needed somebody who was able to handle conflicting situations, and also be able to work with the children and their families through these hard times. And out of the two Welcome Center advisors that the Y has, I chose to go over to our Youth and Family Center. And with that said, I was not only doing membership anymore, but I was living life full circle of those days that I said a cafeteria worker I am not, a camp counselor I am not, because 3 days into being over at the Youth and Family Center, I found myself taking the DCF training and being fingerprinted to work our child care and after school program. So it became a very interesting situation. And this year, I am actually one of the leads of working adaptive camp, as we're bringing adaptive camp back into the equation. So that has been one of the celebrations employment wise. But for me also physically, I could say another celebration for me was in October of 2020. I had hip flexor releases done to finally release my hip flexors in order to be strong enough to walk independently. And also recently, as of Tuesday, had tendon releases in my feet to actually correct 43 years of deformities in my feet. So it has been kind of a year of rebuilding for me. And as much as the pandemic has affected us, and as time goes by and we're trying to rebuild our lives back from the time of the pandemic, pretty much for me, the life celebrations that I've had this year through the pandemic have also been kind of rebuilding me both physically, mentally, and challenging myself to a new level, both physically, mentally, and also in a way of advocacy. because one of the biggest challenges I had to overcome this year was a battle that I know not many of us want to face with as an individual with a disability, but I had to face a battle with Social Security. And honestly, I was not, as much as that one was frustrating, aggravating, and I often wanted to throw in the towel. In the end, I can say that through the knowledge that I had obtained through past experiences that I've had and the people I know helped me win and overcome that obstacle and that hurdle that now allows me to be able to work full time to in a modified capacity, because I am now labeled not as being physically challenged but under statutory blindness. And that took a lot of work on our parts of trying to get the documentation to do that, but it was just perseverance and finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel when you wanted to almost give up. So I guess I kind of answered the COVID question already of how did it really affect me personally. Is honestly, life did not stop one bit at for me. It only made life busier, and actually I never expected a pandemic to present more opportunities. For the what qualities do I look for in a service provider? That was one of my biggest challenges during the pandemic, because during the pandemic, my service provider, who has been with me for 9 years, actually got COVID. And I found myself at a standstill when that happened, because of the situation of the agency that I was working with at the time for personal supports, not knowing how to handle the situation. So it led on to the new adventure of actually finding a new agency for personal supports and supported living, and opened a humongous door that I was able to bring the provider that I've had for 9 years over with me, and also be reacquainted with some old providers, as well as really experience the dynamics of a different agency and see a global picture to a new degree of how different agencies through APD are run that provide personal supports and supported living. And it was really became a breath of fresh air, because it was a more independent, smaller, and quaint agency. And all of the, not to say that I've had problems in the past with this previous agency, and at first I didn't even want to switch, to be honest with you, because that is something that I just didn't want to do. But in the end, when it came down to it, after really evaluating the situation, I realized that there was no harm in at least giving the giving another agency the chance to be able to take on my case and provide services, because as a consumer, I always have the right to choose which providers and consumers I go with. And if in the worst case scenario, if it didn't work out, I just went back. And I think during that situation, it also taught me how to be a doer rather than a bystander. Because when I was changing to a new agency, they didn't know me and I didn't really know them, other than being a case on paper and having conversations over the phone with both my waiver support coordinator and the head of the agency regarding my case. And so it became an educational moment for both the agency, myself, and everybody involved, of how, you know, you don't look at a diagnosis on a piece of paper and automatically assume that their degree of physical challenge of somebody with cerebral palsy is the same as another individual with cerebral palsy. So it became a great educational tool to bring over my knowledge and to educate those providers to that had not already worked with me in the past, to teach them more about disability awareness, the abilities of people with disabilities, and to share with them of how to look at the abilities and the strengths of somebody with a disability, rather than seeing them weak, fragile, and patients, and see them as clients, friends, and acquaintances. One of the unique things with the whole thing about also being a doer rather than a bystander in this situation is the provider that I brought with me from the other agency, who had been with me for 9 years. It also gave him an opportunity to install his knowledge into helping this agency grow and develop, from what he's learned from years of firsthand experience of working with multiple degrees of individuals with disabilities. With working now a modified schedule of 32 hours, between 30 and 32 hours, I really had to learn to do for myself and possibly take the fall, because when I took the position as after school administrator as well as working membership, I really had to decide if I wanted to go out on the limb to see if my body could withstand those demands upon it and still be an active and productive member of my work team to adhere to my responsibilities. And if I never tried, I never knew that I would succeed. And the last thing that I would expect is to be sitting here today, going 13 days into going into summer camp and saying, I'm actually working as a camp counselor. My hours are going to be 6:45 in the morning until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Never did I think that that would be a possibility. Also, with all of the surgeries in which I had, with the hamstrings and the hip flexors and the toe surgery and the rehabilitation process, never did I thought I would hear my doctor finally tell me that you are now free to walk around the house independently. And if you fall, just get up because you know how to do so. So that has been very interesting to me, of just going ahead and taking the risk. And, if all else fails, just try again and remain and having open communication with your employer, and also your personal supports provider and your support coordinator. In addition, I would want to say that being willing to take the fall, one of the things that I have learned through this is the med waiver or the iBudget is always the payer of last resort. And through all of the procedures I've had, and through going to increasing my hours at work, the relationship that I've developed with vocational rehabilitation, to get new braces, to get a wheelchair that I could use at work, that was functional to the responsibilities and the demands that I had, as well as working with the Division of Blind Services to have adequate accommodations made at work with the software that we use, has been pleasantly surprisingly received, and a chance to really given me an opportunity to explore my options of furtherly what's out there, and also give me a peace of mind. There are other supports out there than APD that you can go to be an active working member of society and still receive the supports that you need. Making the movement and exploring your options, I think I pretty much covered that while talking about the vocational rehabilitations and the accommodations. But one of the things that I think is crucial, and that I've learned even more this year than any prior year, is the keys to keeping a good provider. For me, to keep a good provider is not only somebody coming into my house and providing personal supports to me on a daily basis, but it's somebody who actually becomes part of the family. For me, the person that works with me has become a part of our family, has become a part of actually my team of staff at work. Everybody knows him like they do any other person at the YMCA. And I think that it is crucial that the personal supports provider knows when to give you the space that you need, and also the supported living coach knows how to back off, or for lack of better terms, maybe step aside and let you handle a situation and know when to step in versus when to let you handle it. And through that, you just become a well-oiled team. And the key, like I say every single year, is communication, 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 and above all, communication, because everything rises and falls on communication. And when all else fails, just be open and honest with one another. I mean, you guys work as a team, and if you can't work together, and there, for whatever reason the case may be, try to work out the situation. Try to work with your support coordinator or the agency to work with that provider, to see if you can work things out. But nothing is impossible to allow you to reach your goals and your dreams and become a productive member of society if you just all work together and have the common goal. And I think the one thing that we forget most above all is that sometimes we don't let our goals and our desires be known, and nobody lives inside of our bodies but us. So with that said, open communication is key, because if you don't tell them what's going on, if you don't express your needs, your wants, and your desires to do what you want to do, nobody is going to know how to help you. Brandy, in closing, is there anything that you can think of in commonalities that all three of us have mentioned that you may reiterate on or take from a waiver support coordinator standpoint or a CDC consultant standpoint, and reiterate for more of a global picture for the audience?
Basically, the thing that I see in common with support coordination for Robin and Rebecca, and then CDC Plus for Sarah, is locating suitable providers. That seems to be the common denominator for everything. So I think it's basically just with the society that we're in now, with it's being so hard to keep suitable staff, like Rebecca said, because of the pay. I think that's the biggest problem that we're having right now. And then when we do find suitable providers, it's like the staffing, as soon as they find something else, or if an issue arises with the individual, then they're gone. So we're back to square one again. So that's our biggest thing that I see. But it seems like everybody is able to advocate for themselves. That's my biggest thing. Like Robin said, communication and advocating for yourself. Those are the two major things that I like to push with my individuals. Even if they aren't able to do so in the beginning, it's all about educating them on how to get it done and giving them the resources as well, as a support coordinator and as a consultant.
Brandy, what would you say to newer waiver support coordinators, or maybe waiver support coordinators need a little bit of help in that direction, realizing that they don't need to take control, but they need to be teaching the individual the skills to advocate for themselves and helping them have the confidence to be self-determined and make their own choices and have control over their own lives?
It's basically about having that conversation and getting to know your individual one-on-one. I mean, just like Robin said, it's one thing to kind of read a support plan and kind of get a feel for someone, but once you actually make that connection, it can be via telephone call or a face-to-face visit, getting to know their likes and dislikes, because maybe it's something in that plan that happened years ago, and currently when you're meeting them, it's totally different. So it's about meeting them, knowing their likes and dislikes, and working together to try to figure out exactly what their needs are. Because again, everything is person-centered. So it's not about emotions or how I feel. It's about working with that individual to make sure that they're meeting those goals, and making sure their health and safety needs are met as well. So I would say, as a new support coordinator that's coming on, just get to know the individual one-on-one. That's basically the thing. And then look for other outside resources, to kind of get together. You don't always have to meet in the family home. How about meeting at like one of their favorite spots and sitting down, talking to them and getting that information, or going to a park or things like that. It doesn't have to be in such a formal setting as well.
Thank you, everyone, for all of your insights. And
You're very welcome, Natalie. Thank you for being here for us.
oh,
Yes,
well,
definitely.
well, thank you so much for allowing me to moderate. This is such a privilege. It's an honor for me to do it every single year, for you guys to help you get this going and to moderate the presentation. Lastly, we have some resources, links to some resources that panelists felt would be good to present to you. We have provided the link on the Agency for Persons with Disabilities website, the direct link to the page that talks about the iBudget waiver, and has a link to the handbook with all of the details, the coverage and limitations about the waiver, the rules and regulations. We've also included the link to the part of the APD website that talks about the Consumer Directed Care Plus program. And we also have included a link to the Florida Navigator. That is an online search engine made in collaboration with APD and the Family Care Council. Kind of have a clearinghouse, or one place where individuals can go and see what programs are available through the state agencies in Florida. Another link we've put here is to our APD Resource Directory. This is another online search engine that will help individuals learn about resources in their local communities. And ways to keep connected with APD, obviously keeping in communication with your waiver support coordinator and CDC Plus consultant, but getting connected with the Family Care Council is a good thing. We've put the link here to the main website. Also, Florida Self Advocates Network, more commonly known as Florida SAND. That is a network of small grassroots organizations across the state of Florida run by self-advocates, working to build their own self-advocacy skills, but also to advocate for all individuals with disabilities in the state of Florida, improving their lives. And also subscribing to APD News. You can go to our main website, apdcares.org, and click to subscribe to our news. And I guess to sum up this entire panel presentation, we've talked a lot about self-advocacy and self-determination. Don't forget that self-advocacy, it's your decision. We've talked about how to find providers, keep providers, the importance of having good providers. We've talked about how the waiver support coordinator can help you. Brandy talked about the service, and she also shared some of her insight regarding things that she looks at, or things that she feels is important when she's supporting individuals on the waiver. And again, we want to say, learn the rules of the program, know the rules of the program, so that you can effectively utilize the flexibility of the iBudget waiver or the CDP Plus program if you're on CDC Plus.
Thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope this information is helpful to you.